Back to Swine TV, the House of Delegates and Layman recap with Tyler Holck. Welcome back to the program, Tyler.
Well, thanks, Jim. Happy to be here.
We had a great conversation a few weeks ago. Can you recap the House of Delegates and how it was?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The U.S. SHIP House of Delegates, we hosted our third annual just back at the beginning of September, and it was a very productive meeting. I mean, the first two have been productive, but this one seems like there continues to be more and more engagement. It was well attended, almost 300 people in attendance, and again, that's across industry with producers and packers, but also state animal health officials, state pork associations, USDA was represented, and a lot of subject matter experts in the different areas that we're dealing with. So overall, really good meeting.
So you're spreading the gospel and it's kind of resonating with people finally?
I think so. You know, it's U.S. SHIP has been very been very encouraged with the uptake of U.S. SHIP, because as we talk about it and you get to spend time with people to say, hey, this is a national health certification program for swine that we've never had. And you kind of talk through what the benefits are that the poultry's had with NPIP over the years. Pretty much without exception, everybody gets the vision, and yeah, it's a matter of getting out and spreading the gospel with more and more of the producers and packers in the industry.
So what did you learn, Tyler?
Well, I learned that the industry wants us to keep moving forward, and if there was any feedback that said, hey, you need to do better, it's let's do this faster. You know, we just started this in December of 2020, and we're modeling it after a program in poultry that's been around for 88 years. So it takes some time to build it, but the industry wants it. I would say the state animal health officials, so the state veterinarians, they are becoming more and more engaged, and they can start to see where this can help streamline some of their processes, especially when we think about foreign animal disease, but even beyond that. And so I think one of the key things we learned was that folks that are already engaged really start to see the vision of where this could take our swine industry. And so there's more and more momentum to move it forward as fast as we can.
What about traceability?
Yeah, traceability was one of the key topics at the House of Delegates. It had its own breakout session. It was presented in the general session, and then it was the one probably with the most discussion in the business meeting. It was all good. I mean, the good news is, from my perspective, is our industry agrees we need better traceability. We had Dr. Erin Lowe present a study that she did of 4 countries, Canada, Brazil, Denmark, and Australia, that have basically national traceability in place already. And I think that sort of challenged our U.S. team that was there, the House of Delegates, to go, well, it shouldn't be a matter of if we should, the question is how. And so that's where a lot of the discussion came in. The good news is, at the end of the day, a resolution was passed that said, please move forward, conduct at least 1, if not 2 pilots that would be at a regional level, so that we can then learn from those and decide how do we want to take it to a national level.
What about controversy? Was there any controversy, Tyler?
Sure. And I think that's a good sign. That means that it's an important issue for the industry, right? So whether it's traceability, feral pigs, I mean, that's the neat thing about U.S. SHIP to me, is we're addressing some of these issues that have been in our industry for as long as I've been serving the industry. And yet now we have the opportunity to address them. I'd say that the controversy, if I would call it controversy, and maybe it's more confusion, is National Pork Producers Council has got a plan to drive forward with a potential for a mandatory traceability for the country And that's going to be a longer runway. That's going to take a while. But that's in place. Then you've got US SHIP, and we're a voluntary program, and we're looking at what is it that we can do to have a repository. Let's start with a repository where we're capturing movement data. And then you talk about, well, what are the different tools that are out there already, whether that's AgView or RabApp, or there are others. And so I don't know if it's controversy as much as maybe confusion. And I think we made good progress with this House of Delegates to say what we're doing with US SHIP is going to be absolutely consistent with whatever the NPPC is going to do with their national mandatory. In fact, we had a couple of standards tweaked to be more consistent with the NPPC. So I think we clarified, hey, those aren't two disparate efforts. Those are going to be aligned. Theirs mandatory, probably longer term. Ours, we're going to try to get stuff done here in the short term with the voluntary. And then with regard to the tools, the decision with that resolution was, well, let's allow, certainly in this pilot, let's allow for whatever tools make sense in those regions that want to do a pilot. So lots of, I would call, discussion, debate, and hopefully some education such that we can move forward with traceability.
So what about an update on the feral pig into the pork supply chain, Tyler?
Yeah, so that was another breakout. And there's been work that's been done now for a couple of years. There was a really good lit review that was done by a graduate student in Minnesota that was presented. And basically it said, you know, the risk with feral pigs is really to the outdoor raised pigs and minimal to those that are raised indoors. So kind of helped focus the effort that, well, we really need to make sure that we minimize any transmission from feral pigs to outdoor raised pigs. And so the resolution that was passed was work closely with the National Pork Board on the Secure Pork Supply Plan. And let's make sure that we've got enough information and detail in the Secure Pork Supply Plan for outdoor raised pigs that we mitigate the risk with feral pigs. So I think that was a good outcome. And again, it goes with one of the tenets that we've had with US SHIP all along, which is let's leverage some of these great tools that are already out there in the industry, like Secure Pork Supply.
So where and when do we start with PED and PRRS?
Yeah. Well, that certainly wasn't a focus for our House of Delegates. We're wanting to make sure that we button up as much as we can for ASF and CSF. But I will tell you, we had a great keynote talk by Gordon Spronk from Pipestone. And in that keynote, he challenged us that, hey, this framework that we're building, we need to quickly leverage it for some of our domestic diseases. If we want to be the best in the world, our industry wants to be the best in the world, we need to be the best in health along with production. So while those weren't necessarily anything that we voted on in a business meeting, for example, there was certainly some hall talk and conversations during the breaks and dinners that headed it in that direction. Then if I go fast forward just 10 or 12 days later, the Leman Conference, it was actually intentionally, meaning US SHIP was intentionally put in a couple of sessions at Leman Conference that were asking the question, can we utilize US SHIP for these domestic diseases?
So I know you just got back from the Leman Conference, as you mentioned. How else was the show?
I think it was very well attended. It certainly hit on some of the key topics. So, for example, there was a swine disease eradication center, and they have their own session on the very first morning, on Sunday morning. And that one, I felt like it's not just presenting information. It was like, what's the next step? So, for example, Maria Peters, who organized that particular session, came up to me after that because I had presented on how US SHIP the framework is in place, whether it's PED, which was the topic for that morning, or mycoplasma, or eventually PRRS. And I was encouraged because she came right up and she said, all right, what's the next steps? We need to keep moving forward on this. We had a breakout the second afternoon that was basically on certification programs. So JP Cano presented on a project that's going on in Mexico on health certification. And I was able to present again on US SHIP, again in the context of we're focused on ASF, but this framework, just like with MPIP, this framework is really in place for domestic diseases. So I would see that the layman is really helping to not just share information, but to kind of drive, well, what are the next steps, which was encouraged because US SHIP was brought up many times as, well, that's a good platform for us to use.
Do you have a final thought or review to share?
Well, if I have a final thought on US SHIP, it'd probably be continue to spread the gospel, as we've talked about before, meaning those that are aware of US SHIP, they get the vision. When we share what the NPIP on the poultry side has done for that industry, the benefits, especially in the face of high path AI, people quickly understand that this could be very helpful. This is going to be very helpful for ASF and CSF. But we need to continue to bring awareness to the industry, whether that's a large producer, whether that's a small producer. I guess one other comment from back to the House of Delegates is a resolution was passed to focus on how do we engage more of the exhibition or the swine, the show pig industry in US SHIP. And so my final thought would be share with whoever, wherever, whenever you can about the potential benefits of US SHIP with our swine industry so we can get everybody involved.
Well, Tyler Holck, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Jim, and really appreciate being on.